I love this idea that if you prohibit something, it'll stop happening, but it is happening. We can either be realistic about that and make people safe, or pretend it's not happening, try and block it, and then people are less safe. That makes no sense. We need to decriminalise people who use drugs because it's the only compassionate way and it's the safe way, so who doesn't want that? I was an 80s kid, so all the just say no stuff was very prevalent. And I grew up in the countryside. But there was still a chat about drugs. There was still, there was still access to them if people wanted. And I had no interest. I was very lucky, but I was aware of them. I remember at one stage somebody saying to me, even fairly recently, if people were looking for drugs in the countryside, how would they even get them? And I'm like, they're everywhere. It's really quite naive. We can be willfully naive about access to drugs. I remember the just say no stuff and everyone thinking that that was sort of a virtuous position or that it would work, this war on drugs idea. Criminalisation dehumanises, I think, and we've got to get back to thinking about people as people. I don't know if it's sort of a residual morality issue or something, a sort of a drip-fed, drugs are bad, a blanket thing, but drugs are there is the blanket thing. So it doesn't make sense to ignore the facts, but people do, I guess, because they are still clinging on to that idea that hoping it'll go away is the thing to cling to, but actually addressing the fact that they're there, they get taken, and people take them is surely the way forward. Let people be safe, let people be minded. I think in Ireland we're pretty good in general. We could be better on some fronts, but we're pretty good at minding people. So to me, this really fits with what we see ourselves as a people. People are going to go out, they're going to have fun. We all know how people like to drink here, and alcohol's a drug too. Let people be safe, let people be minded. Let's wake up to the reality of the fact that it's already happening. Paying more attention to the Anna Liffey Drug Project and places like that, I've learned to separate the two. So a crime committed that surrounds drugs, like a theft or harming somebody physically, that's a crime. But the drugs themselves are not a crime. And taking them is not a crime, it is a health issue. It's not a safe thing to do, but people do it. So I'd see those two issues as separate now. Legislation is often at odds with people. And our politicians are often far behind where the people are already at, which the two big referenda of recent times show that people were ready long before the legislation was put in front of us. I think it's on all of us. Keep having the conversations, keep putting pressure on our TDs and say, we're already here, catch up, please. Well, in the repeal campaign, in the marriage equality referendum campaign, I think human stories being at the centre is essential to everything. It's essential to, even when we're not talking about big things like legislation change or anything like that, just in the everyday, it's very easy to generalise if you don't know someone. And I think putting the person at the centre of this discussion is as important as in those campaigns. You do know someone who is using drugs. You do know someone possibly who's addicted and just maybe coping a bit better than somebody might assume that people do. You do know someone who's struggling. And I think putting the person back at the centre is essential. That's what storytelling does. That's what, if people are brave enough or safe enough to do so, that it is essential to keep talking. It just seems like a broad and abstract idea out there until you go, okay, there are people involved, there are people involved. Minds are changed when people trust the message, and that's usually when they trust the messenger. So it's up to all of us to keep talking. The power of stories shouldn't be underestimated, and there are a million stories on your own doorstep, so keep listening.